What if the voice causing your anxiety is you? Not the real you, but the part you've spent your whole life trying to hide. The one you were told wasn't acceptable. The one you try to silence with positivity, productivity, or pretending everything's fine. Carl Jung had a name for it: the shadow. And until you face it, it controls you. Have you ever felt anxious for no clear reason, like something's wrong, but you can't put your finger on it? Or maybe you've caught yourself replaying a tiny moment over and over, turning it into a full-blown mental spiral. Sometimes, the harshest voice you hear isn't from the outside world. It's the one inside your head. When that happens, it's easy to think you have a thinking problem, that your thoughts just need to be more positive, more rational, more under control. But what if that's not the root of it? What if the real issue isn't your thoughts, but something deeper, a part of yourself you've been avoiding? In today's video, we're exploring one of Carl Jung's most transformative ideas: shadow work. This is the concept that within each of us lives a shadow, the parts of ourselves we hide, reject, or deny. And here's the surprising part: these hidden parts often hold the key to our anxiety. When you suppress emotions like anger, fear, or even ambition because they don't fit who you think you should be, those emotions don't disappear. They turn inward. They become the tension, the self-doubt, the relentless inner critic. But there's another way. Shadow work isn't about fixing yourself. It's about facing yourself with honesty and compassion. In this video, we'll break down what that looks like in practical steps and how it can transform the way you relate to anxiety. So if you're ready to stop fighting your mind and start understanding it, let's begin. You wake up already feeling off. There's a tension in your body before your feet even hit the floor, a vague sense that something's not right. You try to shake it off, go about your day, distract yourself with work, messages, a quick scroll. But under it all, there's a hum, a quiet buzz of anxiety that never fully leaves. It's not loud enough to stop everything, but it's just persistent enough to make everything harder. And here's the strange part. Nothing's obviously wrong. There's no clear crisis, no reason you can point to. Just a tight chest, a restless mind, and the unsettling feeling that you're somehow out of sync with yourself. You overthink small interactions. You scan your memory for something you missed. You try to solve it with thought. But the more you think, the worse it gets. If that sounds familiar, know this: you're not broken, and you're not weak. This is the shape modern anxiety often takes. It's not always dramatic. It doesn't always come with a panic attack or a meltdown. Sometimes it just whispers. It lives in the background, unseen, but exhausting. According to Carl Jung, this kind of persistent anxiety is rarely about what's happening outside of us. It's often about what we've hidden inside. He called it the shadow, the parts of ourselves we've pushed away because they felt unacceptable or uncomfortable. But buried feelings don't stay buried. They resurface as symptoms: racing thoughts, emotional numbness, sudden irritability, a low-grade sense that something's missing, but you don't know what. This isn't a malfunction of your mind. It's your psyche trying to get your attention. And if we learn how to listen, that quiet anxiety becomes a powerful signal, not of weakness, but of something important wanting to be seen. So if anxiety is really your shadow trying to speak, what can you actually do about it? It's one thing to realize that your inner tension might be coming from avoided parts of yourself, but that insight alone isn't enough. What you need is a way to face it, gently, honestly, and without slipping into more self-judgment. That's where this video goes beyond just naming the problem. We're not here to diagnose. We're here to understand, and more importantly, to transform. Here's what you're going to learn today. First, we'll break down what the shadow actually is. In Jung's words, it's not evil or dangerous. It's simply the parts of yourself you've pushed away because you thought they weren't acceptable. And understanding how the shadow forms can completely shift the way you relate to yourself. Next, We'll look at why these hidden parts can fuel anxiety, overthinking, and emotional burnout, and why the more you try to fix your thoughts without addressing the deeper layers, the more overwhelmed you feel. And most importantly, I'll walk you through a practical 3-step shadow work process you can use in everyday life. It's not complicated. You don't need hours of therapy, just a few minutes of quiet reflection, a willingness to feel, and a little honesty. Shadow work isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming whole. And in doing so, you create space for calm, clarity, and a deeper sense of who you truly are. Let's break it down together. What is the shadow? Carl Jung described the shadow as the hidden side of our personality, the parts of ourselves we've learned, often without realizing it, to suppress, deny, or disown. And contrary to popular belief, this isn't just about bad traits like jealousy, anger, or selfishness. The shadow can just as easily include things like sensitivity, creativity, assertiveness, or ambition. Parts of us that, for whatever reason, didn't feel welcome or safe to express. From the moment we're old enough to understand approval, we start shaping ourselves to earn it. Maybe we noticed we got love when we were quiet and well-behaved, or when we took care of others, or when we hid our emotions. So we adapted. We became the easy child, the achiever, the caretaker, and in doing so, we unconsciously pushed away the parts of us that didn't fit that role. But those parts don't just vanish. They go underground, and over time, they begin to gather emotional weight. Resentment, shame, confusion, these unacknowledged emotions build up in the background. They don't stay quiet forever. Instead, they start to influence our lives in subtle but powerful ways. We might find ourselves reacting strongly to certain situations, feeling anxious or defensive without knowing why. We might sabotage relationships or struggle with self-worth and not realize it's our own shadow pulling the strings. The truth is, much of what we believe to be conscious decision-making is actually shaped by the parts of ourselves we've been avoiding. And until we're willing to turn toward those parts with curiosity and compassion, they'll continue to steer us from behind the scenes. How the shadow fuels anxiety. Here's where it really hits home. Sometimes, something small in the present, like a mild rejection, a disagreement, or a moment of failure, can stir up an outsized emotional response. Your chest tightens, your thoughts race, your stomach knots, and yet on the surface it doesn't seem like a big deal. So you ask yourself, why am I reacting like this? This is often your shadow being triggered. The feelings you've buried, shame, fear, insecurity, don't just stay in the past. They live quietly under the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. And when they do, it doesn't feel like a memory. It feels like a threat, right here, right now. That's when your mind kicks into high gear. It starts analyzing every word, replaying every moment, trying to find a logical explanation for your discomfort. But here's the twist, that overthinking isn't really about finding clarity. It's about creating distance from the rawness, from the truth, from the part of you that's hurting. But the more you avoid the shadow, the louder it gets. That tension, that anxiety, that compulsive loop of thought, it's not weakness. It's your psyche sending a signal. Something inside you needs attention. Something you've been ignoring. You're not broken. You're being called to turn inward, not to fix yourself, but to finally listen to what's been waiting to be heard. The inner critic as a shadow projection. One of the most recognizable and painful ways the shadow shows up is through the inner critic. You know the voice, the one that whispers, "You're not good enough. They don't really like you. You're going to mess this up." It's persistent, persuasive, and deeply personal. And because it speaks in your own voice, it feels like the truth. But here's what's often overlooked. That voice didn't start with you. The inner critic is usually a patchwork of early influences, harsh words from a parent, judgment from a teacher, subtle pressures from culture or religion. Over time, those external messages get internalized. They sink in and become part of your self-talk. So even when no one else is criticizing you, that inner voice keeps the script running. And yet, it's not reality. It's a projection, a defense mechanism. Your shadow, dressed up as logic, trying to keep you in line by preemptively attacking anything vulnerable, messy, or real. Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The inner critic isn't fate. It's not the final word. It's a clue, a signal that a deeper part of you feels unworthy, unseen, or unsafe. And when you start to recognize that, something powerful happens. You stop believing everything that voice says. You begin to trace it back, not to your truth, but to your wounds. And from that place, you can begin to reclaim the parts of yourself it was trying to protect, even if it didn't know how to love them. You don't need years of therapy or a deep dive into complex psychology books to begin shadow work. The truth is, you can start right now, right where you are. All it takes is a bit of honesty, a moment of awareness, and a willingness to look inward rather than away. Here's a simple 3-step process to begin. Step 1. Spot the spike. The first step in shadow work is learning to recognize the emotional spike, those sudden shifts in your mood that seem to come out of nowhere. Maybe you feel anxious in the middle of a calm day, or a wave of jealousy hits after scrolling social media. Perhaps a small comment makes you feel unexpectedly defensive or irritable. These aren't random reactions. They're clues, footprints left by the shadow. A part of you is being activated beneath the surface, often without your conscious awareness. Most of us try to ignore these moments or talk ourselves out of them. But real change begins when you pause. Instead of pushing the feeling away or labeling it as bad, just take a breath. Get curious. What if this emotion isn't a problem, but a signal? This moment of discomfort is the doorway into deeper awareness, and choosing to step through it is where healing begins. Step 2. Name the hidden part. Once you've paused and noticed the emotional spike, the next step is to gently ask yourself, what am I feeling right now that I don't want to admit? This question may feel uncomfortable, and that's actually a good sign. Discomfort means you're getting close to something real. Maybe the answer is, I feel insecure, or I'm jealous, or I'm hurt because they didn't acknowledge me. It might even be something harder to admit, like I want attention, or I need control to feel safe. Whatever shows up, don't judge it. Let it exist without explanation. You're not trying to justify the feeling, you're simply naming it. That act alone is powerful, because when you name what's hidden, you begin to take its power back. You stop letting it operate from the shadows, silently steering your behavior. Shadow work isn't about being flawless. It's about being honest. And honesty, even in small doses, creates real emotional freedom. Step 3. Start a dialogue. Now, take a quiet moment to write, not a traditional journal entry, but a conversation. Speak directly to the part of you that feels ignored, rejected, or unseen. Ask it, what do you need me to hear? Then pause. Listen without judgment. You might be surprised by what surfaces: old fears, unmet needs, or forgotten desires. These parts of you don't want to cause chaos. They just want acknowledgement. And when they feel seen, they soften. They no longer need to hijack your emotions to get your attention. Over time, this simple practice helps shift your response from automatic reaction to conscious awareness, and that's where real transformation begins. Maybe no one ever told you this, but much of the anxiety you carry isn't a flaw in your wiring. It's not because you're too emotional, too fragile, or just overthinking. More often, it's the result of a lifetime spent trying to be what the world wanted you to be: quiet, agreeable, strong, successful. In the process, you learn to hide the parts of yourself that didn't fit the script. You pushed down your anger. You swallowed your grief. You disguised your fear with a smile. And while that may have helped you survive in certain environments, it came at a cost. Because here's the hard truth. Repressing pain doesn't heal it. Denying your rage doesn't make you calm. It just bottles it up. And acting like you're not afraid doesn't make you courageous. It just disconnects you from what's real. Over time, this emotional pressure builds, and eventually, it leaks out in the form of anxiety, tight chests, racing thoughts, emotional exhaustion. But shadow work offers a different path. Instead of constantly trying to change your thoughts or silence your emotions, you begin to turn toward them. You sit with discomfort instead of running from it. You let that buried voice speak, and when you do, something softens. Not because life becomes easy, but because you stop abandoning yourself. You realize that the parts you feared, your sadness, your anger, your vulnerability, were never here to harm you. They were simply messengers, asking to be seen. And when you begin to welcome them back, not with shame but with curiosity, you start to feel whole. Not perfect, but whole. And that wholeness? That's where real strength lives. Shadow work doesn't ask you to become someone new. It invites you to come home to the person you've always been, underneath the roles, the masks, and the fear. That's where healing begins. If this video helped you see your anxiety in a new light, if something finally clicked or made you feel a little more understood, consider giving it a like. It might seem like a small thing, but it actually tells the algorithm that this message matters. And in doing so, it helps more people just like you, find their way to this space of reflection and healing. Now, I want to turn it over to you. What part of yourself are you beginning to see differently? Is it a feeling you've always avoided? A voice you're starting to question? Maybe a part of you that's been quietly waiting to be acknowledged? Drop it in the comments. Seriously, let's make this a place where these conversations are normal, where it's safe to be honest, even in small ways. You never know who might read your words and feel a little less alone because of them. Your story matters, and sharing it might be the first step not just in your healing, but in someone else's too.